Welcome back, everybody, to Catching You. I'm your co-host, Lacie Ham. With me is my other co-host, my beautiful daughter, Lacie. Lacie, say hi.
Hi.
We are fresh off of Mother's Day, which was yesterday. I know you missed Mom, right?
I
Hope
did.
you missed Mom.
Yeah, I have finals this week,
Uh-huh.
so I would have been home for just one day and then had to drive all the way back. So I'll give her my gift when I get back.
Well, you gave her you gave her a massage.
True.
You're welcome. Yeah, so good stuff. So let's stay on the kind of the topic of answering questions or maybe some things that are coming through our pipeline as far as Facebook Messenger. I know last week you did a solo cast. Great job, by the way.
Thanks.
And you answered a couple of questions from a listener. I have another listener. His name is Josh, and um, and he'll laugh about this. It was a novel, um, but he had some great um, things that we could talk about, right? Um, and so let me just kind of go through what he was kind of his not concerns, but just kind of challenges he's facing. His daughter is, I'm assuming, first year 12s. Remember first year 12s, Lace?
I think we skimmed by it, but we
Yeah.
qualified for PGF.
Yeah, so that was a big year for you, right? We came off a 10U, we came off the national championship, lost by one run in the championship. You pitched almost every game, and then we had the same team entering in the 12U, and we'll get into tryouts and stuff like that because that's one of his kind of things he wanted to talk about as far as tryouts. But first year 12s, we had high expectations, right? We're in the Batbusters organization. We're coming off a national championship. First year 12s is different. These girls are much, they're going into middle school, so they're much bigger, stronger, and they pitch a lot faster. So to qualify for PGF at that time was kind of a big deal. I think we were like maybe one or two first year 12s that actually make it to PGF. But so Josh we have very similar paths, Lacie, and I think I discussed with you before. We have very similar paths where we were PE teachers, we were also coaches, and we're also parents of a softball player. And we had similar paths. I resigned from being a head coach of basketball to spend more time with you. I didn't resign from teaching, but because I knew you were coming up through high school, so my plan was to coach softball so I can be with you, and that worked out. But one of his things, and you can attest to this, right, Lace? Mom and I, we were very particular on who we put in front, who we put in front of you, right? So even in middle school, right? Your mom teaches at the middle school you went to. She teaches PE there. So we have the ins on who you can basically have as a teacher, right?
I I think you guys chose my teachers since I was in preschool.
Yeah,
Preschool, I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
But
Because when you were in elementary, that mom was teaching in elementary school too, as well. And then
yeah. Well, yeah, I was at the same elementary school with mom,
yeah,
and then she left to go to middle school, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't like where I went. I don't know why I wanted to go, but I transferred elementary schools,
you did.
and it might have been easier because of where we lived too. Um, Transferred to new elementary school. That was the only time that I didn't have either of my parents teaching at my school was elementary.
Right. So yeah, so we had the ins on who you should be in front of, right? So we were very particular. We were also very particular on who babysat you, right? So what were the two requirements for our babysitters, if you remember?
They had to have a 4.0 and they had to be athletes.
Yep. Yep. So
And both
because
of
I
them
was
I
teaching
know.
Yeah, but so what? Because I was teaching in high school, I had a lot of, and mainly females, right? But I had a lot of girls. Oh, can we babysit for you? Can we babysit for you? Because when I started teaching high school, you were 6,
Yeah.
and Jesse was 3. So, can you? And then I would say, hey, what sport do you play? And do you have a 4.0? And if they said no to either one of them, I said, no, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
I mean,
Um,
it makes sense because I mean, I've talked about this with a lot of my friends too, is you are who you like hang around with, or
mhm.
you are who you're, I don't know, associated with. So a lot of decisions and like moral standings come from the people around you because if you're hanging out with them all the time, like you want to be around like-minded people, and usually sometimes those like rub off on you. And so, yeah. So having babysitters that were athletes and like were smart, they helped me with my homework. We would watch sports together on the TV when we would hang out. So definitely made an impact, I think.
Yeah, and the main thing for us is that they're responsible, right? They're responsible in the classroom. They're getting their homework done. They're 4.0 for a reason, and then you have to be responsible as an athlete, right? You're going to practices, you're getting yelled at by coaches, you have to be on time, and so that those two aspects we were very particular. So if you're listening and you have young ones, I would highly recommend you um, be very particular on who your babysitters are, and be prejudiced. I do prejudge. That's a I that I always told them I'm prejudiced. They're like, "What are you talking about?" Well, you have to have a 4.0 and you have to be an athlete. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm prejudging you. If you don't have either of those two qualities, you're not watching our kids. Um, so let's move on to that. So yeah, we were very particular. And then one of the things because his daughter's just now getting into travel ball, which we started. You started when you were 9, so
Yeah.
so, and then you didn't really have to try out because you're the head coach of your travel ball team was your all-star coach. So it was just like, hey, Lace, you're
Yeah.
on our team. And then we did have tryouts for other people, but and then I'm not sure why he's talking about tryouts as far as being closed. You don't remember ever any tryouts being closed, right? I'm not sure what he means by that, but
I don't understand that really. Like say if an organization does have closed tryouts, I especially as a athlete going from like 10U to 12U, and you're at the beginning of like middle school, like that age for me, I feel like I would feel so anxious at a tryout if I didn't like have some sort of support system
yeah,
outside.
seeing
Um
your parents, be on the fence a little bit.
yeah, like just I mean sometimes just them just standing there and like like a girl being able to see her parents like right there supporting her
Yeah,
would make their experience way more impactful, and their performance might even be 10 times greater than if their parents were not there.
right.
So my anxiety level would probably raise a few bars if it was like a field, the coaches, and all these girls I'm competing against with no one around. Like I don't and what we don't know who this coach is. I mean, thankfully we knew all like a bunch of the coaches in our organization that like we knew them. Like I don't what if you're trying out for a new organization and it's closed and you have no idea who these coaches are, you have no idea who these girls are.
That might be a red flag.
That might be a red flag for me.
Yeah,
I especially
as
with
a
the
player,
coaches.
that's a red flag. Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
For I mean, I think it should be a red flag for both parents and kids.
Yeah,
'Cause why is it closed? I mean,
yeah. Right.
the only thing I could think about is if the coach didn't want the players to get distracted by the parents. But then I said to you before, if the player is getting distracted by their parents during a tryout, you probably don't want that kid on your team, because now they're getting easily distracted from something that, like, what about a game? Are they gonna talk to their parents during a game? Like, uh,
Yeah.
but it's a matter of like keeping keeping the girls calm, especially during tryouts are so like high anxiety for a lot of people for
Yeah.
anything. Like interview, it's like an interview, tryout, anything like that. Like you're competing against all these people around you, you have no idea who they are, and you're supposed to outperform them. So how are
Yeah.
you supposed to do that under high stress?
Right. Yeah, no, and I get it. And he says he gets it because, there are parents out there that are constantly meddling into their kids' business, right? They, hey, Lace, you know, you know, throw this way, or make sure, step and throw, so they're always, they're coaching from beyond the fence. And I can see it maybe an organization saying, hey, you need to, like, but, we never had that issue because of the organization we get in, and we're going to get into us being Batbusters and how that was viewed by other people. But as parents, you have Mike Stith, you have Mark Campbell, and you have Chris Garcia on the field. As a parent, you're going to shut your mouth. You're not going to say anything because, like, in that organization, a lot of times it's you're on the team because of the parents. If you're just a jerk as a parent, or if you're distracting, like you said, if you're distracting if you're saying stuff to your daughter as they're trying to try out, your daughter might be pretty good, but they're gonna be like, yeah, no, thank you. We don't want this parent on the team. Um, I've said that a few times, that even if it's apples to apples, and they look at the parents, they're gonna go with the parents that are cool and relax and chill. And so all the tryouts, and we were lucky, right, Lace? We were lucky because we we went to the tryouts. Or you went to the tryouts. You didn't necessarily have to try out, and we'll put it in
We
air
were
quotes.
we were crying out.
Yeah, you were trying out. There was very few spots, right, for the
Yeah,
team
like
that you were
okay.
on. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
They were basically trying out for the lower, the B teams or the C teams
But then
primarily.
like, I mean, it would be a big tryout. So even the returners had to come,
Hmm.
and like you kind of knew what team you were going to be on, but our coach, like the coach that I knew that was going to be my coach, would be on the sideline probably looking for like another outfielder, another pitcher, another infielder, like just
Yeah,
depends on who shows up to the tryout and who stands out, I guess.
yeah, and it was good to have you guys there because they were able to compare these people trying out to you guys. Like, okay, can they compete with these elite players? And if they can, then they might have a shot, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
we knew like the ins and outs. They ran it sort of like a practice.
mhm.
So we knew what the drills were. Like, all right, everyone, 5-star drill, and we'd all just run to our spots, and all the girls trying out. And but we would like take those girls and be like, all right, and then tell them what they're supposed to do,
Mhm.
and depending on whether they get it or they don't get it, that could also be a factor. Like
Yeah,
being easily I mean, you're not coaching as a teammate, but like adjusting to drills that pop up in a tryout that you have no idea what they are, like around the horn. What's around the horn?
yeah.
You might want to know what around the horn is.
Yeah, if
and
you don't know around the horn and you show up to a Batbuster tryout, you're
and I remember having to explain to a girl, like he'll randomly switch the direction, so just keep an ear out. And I remember her going up and he said switch and she didn't switch, and you could see like the look on his face, and I was like, "Ooh,
and he's not going to scream at her because she's trying out. But if
no." But
it
then
was one of you, he would scream at the
right,
top of his lungs.
right. But then I know he was looking at me too because she was in my same line, and like I'm expected to guide her as well. So I was like, oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So
especially.
let's touch on that. So we weren't the only program out there that was negatively looked upon. Uh, right? I mean, we had our issues with the Corona Angels and how they conducted themselves. I'm sure they looked at us and said certain things. So every organization is going to be different. And you've played with girls that play for multiple organizations. They were program hopping, trying to find that right one. You luckily didn't program hop until 18s, but um, yeah. So it was just more of a swag. It's just kind of how those organizations carried themselves.
I
We
think,
never had. Go
yeah.
ahead.
I'd say this is just from my perspective. I don't know what it is from a Corona Angels perspective, but I think it was the main rival that we had. Like Batbusters, we weren't allowed to one thing was we weren't allowed to celebrate home runs at home plate. So,
Start
Keith,
over.
Keith
Yeah,
Berg
just
was
start over.
calling me.
Yeah, just start over.
Um, so with Batbusters, our main rival was the Corona Angels. So I think the main thing that I noticed was with Batbusters, we were sort of quiet in a way, or we would. I'm busy right now. Okay. Batbusters, Corona Angels were rivals. Batbusters, what, more quiet? I don't know if it's quiet.
I,
Humble? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, because you don't want to say Corona Angels aren't humble. I mean, they just they it's hard to describe. I don't know. We don't want to badmouth them because they were a very good program. They just did things differently that we didn't do, and that's
Like,
we looked at that as like, okay, they're different from us in the way they're conducting themselves. We
yeah.
don't do that, so we kind of felt like we were more not high and mighty, but we're just like, we're just like, it was more of a business, right? We hit a home run. Hey, act like you've done it before. Just give them a high five when they come in the dugout, right? Where you see that all over TV now. It's just like home runs are just, they come out to home plate and they're
Yeah,
super
it's
excited,
so much more fun.
which is weird because those girls that you played with back then, they were hitting home runs all the time and they weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah. I think
But and then when you look over Corona Angels, they hit home runs and they were just going crazy, right? So we
it's
just,
it was
yeah,
something to teach us to be more like humble
yeah,
and expect more of yourself always. So you hit a home run, all right, like that's good
move on, yeah,
on to the next at bat,
yeah,
and there's pros and cons to that, but I guess definitely to teach us more to be more humble and humility and all that stuff. But
yeah,
I mean, Corona Angels were definitely more like outward with their emotions and very talkative, very loud in the dugout. We were not very loud. I don't think we even cheered most of the time.
yeah. You guys were boring.
We were really boring.
And a lot of it might have been jealousy too, right? They were just, you're looking over there and they're celebrating each other. They're celebrating just, a strikeout. They're celebrating, they'd get walked and they would celebrate. And it's like, maybe the part of it maybe was just some jealousy. It's like, I want to celebrate. I want to, I want to have fun.
Yeah, I thought that was like the normal thing. I'm like, why are they so loud? But, like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah. So, and it rubbed people the wrong way, which is fine. I mean, it is what it is now. It's like at the time we're just like, they're so annoying. But
yeah,
um um and then so his last thing was um being inquisitive to a coach. Like, so for example, if I were to walk up to Mike Stith and say, "Hey man, what is your philosophy on on first and thirds, or something, something I wouldn't say stupid, but just like being asking questions to the head coach, like, hey, what do you guys do as far as team bonding? If I were to ask Mike Stitt that or Mark Campbell, they would have said, okay, see that door right
they
there?
tell you to leave
Yeah, they see that door.
or just
Go ahead and just go out that door and take your daughter with you. Um, Yeah, so it's a fine because I get it, Josh. The guy who wrote these messages, I get it. He he wants to make sure that his daughter's in front of the right coaches, and he said that word of mouth is a lot of a word of mouth, right? It's Southern Orange County, Orange County Batbusters. It was mainly word of mouth. It's like, okay, if you play for the Orange County Batbusters, you have Mike Stidd, Mark Campbell. Those are the ones. Those are the guys you want to play. You want to play for because so many girls were, they got scholarships, going to these major colleges. So if you played for them, the odds of you getting a scholarship were very high. So we just kind of put our head down and said, okay, we're in. We're all in. Some people lasted, some people didn't, right? And
Mhm.
and we can get into next week, because we haven't really got into 18s yet, but um just yeah, we don't want to it's just hard as a parent because I get it. You want to put your kid in front of the right coaches. So that's why you just kind of want if you don't if you it's got to be a gut, right? It's got to be a gut feeling as a parent. I'm talking as a parent. And let's say hypothetically you were to go to a tryout and check it out, and you just see something that you just didn't like, and it's in your gut, just like that doesn't sit right with me. The way he was yelling at people, or because you play for Mike Stiz, Mark Campbell, Chris Garcia, they're gonna scream and yell. I mean, Mike Stiz was screaming at the top of his lungs if you made a mistake, right? And you
Yeah.
had to deal with it. And if you can't deal with it, then it's not the right program. So you just gotta keep going to different programs, and as a parent, it's gotta feel right. And being in the Batbusters, playing for Chris, playing for Mark, it just felt right for you. We felt like you can handle it. You were competitive. Yes, you got emotional sometimes when they yelled at you, but you got over it. Um, so it's just trust your gut. Go to multiple tryouts and trust your gut. That's all you can say. Yeah, you can ask around, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't go to the coaches.
No,
Right.
no, I agree, and I mean, because you would sit, or you or mom would sit at sometimes like hang out with the other parents at our practices sometimes.
Hmm.
And so if say you do make this team and you're not really sure what the head coach is about or the other coaches, just sit on in their practices and observe, I'd say.
Hmm.
Like you don't have to say anything to the coaches. You can get a gist of what they're about by just sitting in the outfield and observing how the practices run. How is he talking to the players? Is he doing one-on-one? Is there like nothing being said after a mistake? Like looking out how they discipline the girls, like is it just constant running, or is it like very intentional? Like run to the fence and back and get back over here, or is it just constant running, nothing
Yeah.
being, you know, there's yeah, and I think you would get a gut feeling by just observing and seeing what the practice is all about, or yeah, because you don't want. I mean, if your daughter is super competitive, you don't want a coach that's like, oh, it's okay, let's just move on to the next drill. Like you want more of a hard ass coach then, and
Yeah.
if and then you got to move on or find a different place. So it's just observing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not going up to Mike and asking that.
Yeah. And just hanging out with parents on the other side of the fence. If you hear them constantly complaining, then there might be something wrong, right? But if they're just chill and they're just in their lounge chairs, and hanging out and talking politics or talking weather or talking you know vacations, um, and they're not talking about the coaches and how horrible they are, or situational stuff, then you might be in the right place, right? So, Lace, let's move on. He had a second tier to his questions or his comments, and that we'll just kind of break it down to um, transitioning from you know 10, 12, you 14, 16s, transitioning and dealing with the different types of relationships different coaches, because you had different coaches when you moved up, and then you have different players that you played with. And how did you handle that? Because you go from 12, you're getting into middle school, and you talk to mom, and middle school girls from 6th grade to 8th grade, they change dramatically. And she can attest that. We can bring her on, and she'll go off on how sweet and innocent they are in 6th grade, and then all of a sudden in 8th grade they're just completely different people. And I'm sure it's the same with, again, it's the organization. The organization you guys in was just, there wasn't a lot of drama. I mean, you did, first year 14s at the end, or second year 14. I forget when we had that drama coming home from Colorado, but
I don't
uh,
remember.
yeah, but there wasn't a lot of drama just because like-minded people. We talk about, right, being around like-minded people. So I don't know if you can touch on that a little bit.
Just like my teammates and
Yeah, just transitioning from different, from 10s to 12s to 14s, and maybe
yeah.
playing with different girls.
I mean, I was lucky enough to play with some of the same girls pretty much my whole travel ball life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, once you get to that middle school age, I think I've talked about this before, but it starts to get really clicky, and
That's right.
you start to hang around people that you feel more drawn to and more feel like will are like-minded, like you said. And sometimes they aren't the best people to be hanging out with, but you think that's kind of the best option for you, like in a social setting. Some girls, I know girls especially, like young girls, feel pressured to feel or to join the cool group or like be the cool girl. And let me tell you, being mean is not cool. So I figured that out pretty early because I think what kind of helped me too is I had friends in middle school that were not softball players. I didn't In my whole friend group that I had in middle school, not one of them played softball. I mean, some of them played sports, but they were not in my outs they were not part of my extracurricular activities at all. Like I would never see them on the weekends. I would never see them at practice. But my friend group in middle school, I mean, I'm still friends with them today. I was lucky enough to have some really good friends and that had good morals, I mean, we supported each other. I mean, we would hang out, have all this fun together, go on trips, and that kind of I would take those thoughts and those social thoughts over to my softball world, and always like my social world and my softball world are completely two different areas. So,
But you took the qualities of your non-softball. You took the qualities of their character, and when you play softball, you're looking, because you talked about it. It's clicky. You're gonna seek out those type of girls that kind of fit that mold, right?
yeah.
Um, but talk about the ones that weren't in that mold, or in a different clique. I mean, it didn't. I wouldn't imagine you're like just shunned them, right?
No, I mean, I got along with a lot of the girls on pretty much all my teams. Um, I mean, obviously there's going to be ones that I'm not as close with. Like even now on my college team, there's still girls that I'm not as close with than other ones.
Hmm.
And that's just part of life, I feel like. But I mean, it's all about I mean, you can observe too. I mean, I would have my friends at my house or like even the teammates that I were close with. I mean, we would share hotel rooms together, all that stuff. So you would see the people that I would hang around with, or you
Hmm.
would see the people that I associate with. And I feel like you or mom would tell me like, "Hey, I don't know if this person is good to hang around." I don't know. I don't really we've never really had that experience before, but um just being able to see the type of character that I mean, even at practice, like how we talked about observing, you can observe the people that your daughter is like hanging around more, or during game breaks, I want to go hang out with her. I want to go eat lunch with her. And guys, just kind of observe. I mean, if you notice something off, then got to communicate that with your daughter and maybe set some boundaries. But I mean, relationship wise, you don't have to shun them. You just don't get along as good as you do with other girls. So, yeah, it's very
Yeah.
clicky. Um,
But at the end of the day, you have a common goal, right?
yeah.
Which is to improve. At the time, you guys are trying to win PGF, and then you're also trying to get recruited. So you guys all had a common goal, right? There were girls on your 14s I was not a fan of,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, you are not to hang out with them. I never said that to you, but in my mind, I'm like, you better not hang out with them, because I didn't like their character. I didn't like how they conducted themselves. They didn't work very hard, right? They always took plays off, or when the coaches turned their backs, they were giggling, and they weren't as serious as you were. And so, yes, we wanted you to hang out with people that were serious about what you guys were on these teams. We're supposed to have these common goals, which is win PGF and get recruited. That's kind of the two major goals. And if we didn't see that as parents, we didn't see some of those girls have those same goals. We're like, hey, you are not to hang out with them. But I think you did that on your own. I think you saw that, you observed, and you're like, yeah, they don't, they're not like me, so I'm not going to hang out with them as much, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you in college, right? You're still the same way. Your roommate's a soccer player, and then you have your other friends are tennis players.
Yeah.
Right?
Best friends on this tennis team. My roommate's a soccer player. I
Yeah,
have friends that are not athletes that go to a completely different university down the street. Like it's all over the place, and like I'm more drawn to these people compared to other people. It's just how life works.
yeah. And then on the changing the different coaches. Again, we were in the same organization for, I don't know, you were 9, let's see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So what was that, 8 years?
Yeah.
About 8 years we're in the same organization. We knew the coaches. We knew who we were going to play for. So I can't really, Josh, I can't really talk about, uh, different relationships with coaches, because we knew the coaches. We knew what we were getting into. Um, but as far as a parent and observing coaches, we just had a really good feeling about, because of Lacie and who she was and how competitive she was. We knew this was the right organization. If it wasn't, we would have dined and ditched. we would have tried to find somewhere else.
We had
And
to, and we had to at one point, which was scary.
yeah, we can get into that, next episode, because we haven't really talked about. We kind of touched on 16s a little bit, but your first year at 18s was not the best, and then
So I had to go back to 16s, remember?
yeah, so yeah, in the fall of 18s, after fall was over, we come back in January. We had to go back to 16s, and different team, different organization. So we can get into that later. But Lace, you have one more week. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have finals all this week and one on Monday, and then I'm done.
And then you're coming back home.
I am.
So we're going to pay for an apartment that's going to be empty. That's fantastic. That's great.
I'm also chipping in. Don't
That's
forget.
true. That's true.
I'm doing
That's
my
true.
due diligence.
Due diligence. Yeah. I'm joking with you, but we're looking forward to having you back home, even though you're 21 years old.
And probably will still live there after college. I don't know.
Listen, I lived with my mom when I was 26, so it's okay.
And
It's
we'll
okay.
have the dogs, the
That's
kitchen.
right.
Yeah, come on.
Right.
The best
That's
of
right.
both worlds.
Yep. All right, Lace, I love you.
Love you.
We'll catch everybody else on the other side. Take care, everybody.